So in the ACT reading question, I've got two big tips for you. One's for the passages and the other for the questions. First off, for the passages, listen, I get it. Passages on the ACT can be long, they can be boring, and they can be really tiring. Now, one of the reasons why they're so challenging is because in school, we've always been trained to focus in on the details, on figuring out what the facts are, the dates, whatever it is, because we know we're going to need to memorize those in order to do well on a subsequent test. Now, in the ACT, I want you to change your mindset. Instead, I want you to focus on the purpose, the why, the big picture. This is an open book test. Some of the questions ask about the details, but you can always research and come back for those. Instead, really focus as you're reading, ask yourself questions on why did the author put it in this way? What was the point they were trying to make? And you'll find that it's going to be a little bit easier to stay engaged. And more importantly, you'll leave with the kind of information you need in order to do really well on the ACT reading questions. All right, let's jump right in. All right, so in this first part of the story, all we really got to figure out is who are the main characters. That's Ivan, an artist who's being paid by criminals to copy a painting, and what the setting is. And the author has taken some time to show us that Ivan is starting to paint. And there's a whole bunch of colors that Ivan is going to be using. That's all we really need to know. And I don't want you to spend too much time really diving into those colors, because if they do ask a question about them, we can always come back for it. So let's move forward and figure out what happens next. Okay, so in the second section, listen, I don't want you to spend too much time trying to learn every little thing about Ivan or about the story. We can always come back for those details as necessary. Instead, we should again focus on why the author wrote these paragraphs. Here in this portion, he's really just talking about the process that Ivan is using here. And then in the second paragraph in this section, it looks like it's just kind of taking over his life. So he's always thinking about the painting. And so to me, that's all I've got to take away from this. I now know that we've spent some time talking about the process that Ivan used and that Ivan's always thinking about it. Let's see how this story concludes. All right, so in this third part of the passage, what I see is kind of a comparison between Ivan and another character, Slava. And Slava is giving him an invitation to just come over and they'll just Photoshop the whole thing. But that sounds exactly the opposite of everything we know about Ivan so far. Ivan has really painstakingly thought about the colors, how he's going to set this all up, the process. Seems really excited to do this. Whereas Slava's just like, hey, we'll just take care of it. So the last thought I'm left with is the story is really set up, hey, Slava is not Ivan. And maybe in some sense it's telling us that Ivan is a bit special in that case. And the big picture that I see here is that, listen, Ivan was hired to copy this painting, but Ivan is really kind of completely absorbed by this opportunity. So Ivan is really looking forward to copying the painting. And that is the main thing I want you to take away from this. The author's taken the time to really show you how much Ivan cares. And if we can get that understanding, well, now let's take that and go to the questions, where I'm really excited to show you the other tip for the ACT reading section. So this first question is about the point of view from which this passage is told from. And now I'm excited to give you the big tip about questions. Our first instinct on multiple choice is always to jump to the answer choices. And I get that. A lot of times we can kind of reason out what works and what doesn't as an answer. But I'll tell you right now, the ACT reading answer choices can really tempt you. They can really distort and manipulate the different details that you might have read in the passage to make the answer sound correct. And so the way to avoid that kind of trap and the way for us to be more effective and also more efficient is to take this sidestep, this different tactic of making a prediction. So after you read a question, understand what the question is asking, research your answer, get the details you need if you have to, and then make a prediction. Come up with your own answer, kind of aside from these answer choices, and then match it up. What you'll find is that you won't get tempted into those trap answer choices, and you'll actually speed yourself up because you won't be spending time with the wrong answer choices that you would normally spend time considering. So, for example, here, if I told you point blank without the multiple choice, what is the point of view? You might say something like, hey, someone is telling us about Ivan's thoughts. Telling us Ivan's thoughts. That's a great prediction. Well, I guess I came up with it, right? But in any case, that's the kind of prediction you want to come up with, and then you can match it up to one of the answer choices. Now, I don't know who that someone is. So I don't know if it's an artist or if it's the person who hired that artist. H and J both say that narrator is unidentified, which is great. H says it's about the thought and actions of an artist copying, and J is about the visitors. Now, I've predicted that this passage is about Ivan's thoughts, so H is the perfect match for that prediction, and I can confidently move on. Let's try that strategy out on the next question. So in this next question, I hope you took some time to try to make a prediction, because they do ask about details, but they ask about what those details suggest. And like in many questions on the ACT reading, the details are important, not so much for what they're about, but more importantly, why they're there. So after you read a question and they point out some details, always go back to the passage to research, which is what we'll do here. We'll take a closer look at that excerpt. And I hope you didn't miss the curveball they threw with the word except in all uppercase. That tells us we're looking for a reason that wouldn't account for his laughter. Okay? And so this portion of the passage is all about the process of him replicating this painting. And so far, he's kind of laid out the colors. He seems very excited about the task. And we get to this portion where he says to think that his corrupt flesh would be invading this image of piety tells me that he really kind of worships this painting. This painting is a big deal to him. And there's a sense that he feels like his flesh is corrupt. He thinks it's kind of crazy that he's going to be the one to wear this sheet in order to be able to copy the painting. And so when I look at that information, I can then take that prediction I've made that he's kind of unworthy, that this is kind of nuts that he's the one copying this amazing painting, and take it over to the answer choices. Now look at them one by one. Nervous and violating something sacred. Yeah, that matches up, right? It could be a reason, so let's get rid of it as an answer. And B, amusement as how he's wearing the sheet. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's so much amused by how he looks, but I guess that could work. Let's hold off on that for now. C, feeling of unworthiness. Definitely, right? He calls his flesh corrupt, so there's no way that C is the answer. And then any doubts about B kind of go away when I look at D, because does he think that the painting is poor quality? No way. He thinks this painting is amazing. That's why he's so excited to copy it. And so that means that even though I had some doubts about B, D is definitely our answer because it's pretty much the opposite of what Ivan has told us so far. And that's the answer we're going to go with here. So this last question is a little bit more straightforward. It's asking what the passage is suggesting that the name Atulska is. Well, if we go back and research, and always do your research. This is an open book test. Don't rely on your memory. Your memory will fail you when it's under pressure. And so instead we go back, we see it's talking about where their office is located. So my prediction would be something like a street name. And so if I look at the answer choices, we see a perfect match for that. F is definitely our answer. Let's choose it and move on. So remember those two big tips with the reading section. Anytime you're dealing with a passage, always think about the passage's big picture, the passage's purpose, because that's going to help you not obsess over details, not get bogged down by them, not get bored by them, and help you keep moving forward. You should be thinking about why the author wrote something. That's going to help you get the information that you need. This is an open book test, so make sure after you read a question, you research. And then the key step for questions is to make that prediction. This is a game changer. That prediction will help you stay away from trap answer choices, and it'll speed you up because you'll be able to not have to spend so much time with those wrong answers that are so craftily constructed to tempt you, to call for you. All right, so keep those in mind, and let's take a look at our last section.